Okay, welcome to 4.5, Systems of Linear Inequalities. Looking through the e-learning, there's not a ton in here that you really need to know. There's just a couple of really focused things that I want to make sure you know. So I'm actually going to switch over to the study guide and just kind of help you focus. So if you have the study guide, grab it. If not, grab a piece of paper. And this is what you really need to know to do well on this quiz. So the first thing you need to know is how we shade and what type of lines. So sometimes you're going to shade above the line. That's going to look like that, or if the line's going the other way, it's going to look like this. You shade above the line when you see the greater than symbol or the greater than or equal to symbol. Then sometimes we shade below the line. So it'll look something like that, depending on the angle of the line. That's when you see the less than or equal to symbol. Next, we have the type of line that we're going to draw. Dashed lines look like this. And we do a dashed line when we see either the greater than or the less than symbol. So it's not always going to be the same top to bottom. Okay, if there's no line underneath, it is a dashed line. So solid lines are what you're used to, what you first start graphing. They look like that. And that's when you see the greater than or equal to or the less than or equal to. The big thing being, you'll see a line underneath, it's a solid line. No line underneath, it's a dashed line. Okay? So that's the first main thing. You got to make sure you kind of have those things memorized of what means what when you're looking at the symbol. Okay. Next, the thing they're going to be talking about is where the solutions are in a graph. Okay, so they're going to ask you about that by asking a question like this. Which of the following points lie in the solution set to the following system of inequalities? So real quick, I will go back to here and let's look at. Okay, so that's where each one is graphed separately. Then when they're put together, you remember that the solution is where the two shades overlap. Okay, so if you had a graph, you could find a point, here or here or here. Those are in the solution. In the blue is just a solution to one line, the yellow is just a solution to the other line, and the white area is a solution to nothing. So that's the easy way when it's a graph. But what if they only give you the equation? You could graph it if you wanted to, but another way to do it is to substitute. So they're saying if this is your point, will it make this statement true? So you got to remember that the first number is your x and the second number is your y. So you could try and graph them and figure out the shades, but unless you've got a graphic calculator, you know how to make it shade, that can get tricky. So the other way to do it is to substitute. Here, let me take these two. So you'd want to kind of write down these two equations. I'll put them side by side for you. And then we're going to start substituting the numbers. So you start with 1, okay? So 0. So the y is 0. And then the x happens to also be 0. So you would do this. And then you would simplify this out. And if you get a statement that's true, then you know you're good. So the 0, you don't have to do anything. But in the calculator, all right, we would just type it in. -2, copy it exactly the way you see it on your graphing calculator. You would get 3. So then you would write it down. 0 is greater than 3. Is this true? No. Once you get one no, that can't be a solution. And then you would move on and you would just keep testing them. So if I did the next one, and I would keep starting. So here's my y. So I would say that 3 is greater than -2, not the x, put the 1 in, plus 3. Grab your calculator. If you want, you can go up and grab this equation. And then just change this to 1. I just hit enter when I grabbed it. And I got a 1. So that means that 3 is greater than 1. Is that true? Yes. Then you got to check the other equation. So we'll do it again. 3 is less than or equal to, instead of x, I put a 1 minus 3. In your calculator, you would get 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. Is 3 less than or equal to negative 2? No. So it's got to be true for both. So sometimes you'll get it right on the first time. Sometimes you'll have to test it more than once, but this is what we're going to do. So then we're going to test the third one. Change colors. And now we've got a 7 as the x and a 1 as the y. So is 1 greater than negative 2 times 7 plus 3? Ooh, that's a bad 3. Sorry, guys. Again, when you've got our calculator, you can go up and grab it so you don't have to retype it, and then change this to the number you want. And I get negative 11. So is 1 greater than negative 11? Yes, that means I test the second one. So is 1 less than or equal to 7 minus 3? Is 1 less than or equal to 4? Yes, I have 2 yeses. So that's my answer. So that's kind of like the substitute check way, especially if you don't have the ability to graph. That's one of the main things you're going to be asked to do on the quiz. There'll be a couple questions like that. So substitute and use your calculator. Something else they're going to ask you to do is they're going to give you a graph and they're going to say, what's the equation of this graph? So using that, now again, you're going to have to try and do this on your computer screen. So as best you can, the first thing you want to do is you're going to set up both equations. So you can always write this down on a piece of scrap paper. So and then you got to decide. This is number 1, and then this is number 2. Okay, so for number 1, it's a dashed line, and it's shaded above. So that goes back to all of this, where you have to know the difference of the symbols. Okay, so that means it's greater than. No line underneath because it's dashed. And then you can figure out the M and the B. Okay, so the B is always where it crosses the y-axis. So that's a plus 3. And then you find another point right here. So it's down 1 and over 1. So that would be a negative 1 over 1. And then there's always an x next to the b. In a multiple choice, this will be simplified down. So it would be y is greater than this. These ones will become invisible. So you would just end up with negative x plus 3. Again, it's a little harder when it's on your computer screen, but the best you can like kind of use your finger and try and count down like I drew on the screen. And then you would do the second one. So the second one is right here. It's a solid line and it is shaded below. So that would make it less than or equal to. And I can guarantee you guys that they'll have the correct numbers with the opposite sign as one of the multiple choice. So you got to be careful and make sure you know which sign you're doing. Again, we will do the B. That's a negative 2. And then let's do the slope. So we go up 2 and over 1. So that is a 2 over 1. And then there's an x. You want to simplify it down. 2 over 1 is 2. So these are the 2 equations. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see 4 choices. And you have to make, that's why you kind of want to have a piece of paper next to you and write it down, because like this might be choice C, but choice B will have the exact same things, but they'll flip the signs like this to see if you're paying attention. So make sure you know which signs are which. And the last one is the opposite, where they will give you two equations and you're going to have to pick out the graph. So again, you might want to, on a piece of paper, or like use your study guide, use one of the blank graphs and graph it out. And then, so you just got to remember, kind of go the opposite way. So if I graph the first one right here, you got to remember I start at 1. This means down 1 and over 2, down 1, over 2, down 1, over 2, down. Okay, and then you got to analyze this. This means a solid line. So best you can, you're going to make yourself a solid line. Okay. And then you got to figure out the shade. Don't forget your arrows. This symbol is greater than or equal to. Greater than means above. Now on the pictures on the quiz, one will be like yellow and one will be blue again. So you just kind of have to remember which one's which. And then you're going to do the second graph. So this means it starts at -6. That's our V. And this means I go up 3 and over 2. And again, if you don't have any paper, you don't have the study guide, you can try and look at the different choices and just kind of use your finger on the screen best you can and try and draw it out. Sometimes you can do it just from, we got to analyze. This would be a dashed line because it is just plain less than, not less than or equal to. And one choice will have it solid and one choice will have it dash, and you got to make sure you remember which one it is. And let's see, less than is below, so it'll be shaded this way. Again, it might have the exact correct line and they'll shade it the wrong way. And then, so you're going to have to pick out the graph that looks like this. So again, if you have the study guides, use one of your blank graphs while you're taking the quiz and graph it out for yourself, and then find the choice that matches your graph. That is the basics. Those are the 3 main things that you have to do on this quiz. So if you have any trouble with that, let us know. We can maybe try and find you some extra problems to practice. But if you guys can practice that and memorize it, you're going to do great on this quiz. Good luck, and let us know if you need anything.